You're listening to your number one radio station.
This is the Cannabis Community Project. Oh, yeah.
Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
And now, broadcasting live from the Dink Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. It's the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project. Hey, Cannapreneurs, let me take a second just to tell you about Cushly Organic Products. What it does is it eliminates odor. It doesn't mask it. It's not a perfume. It's not a cologne. It eliminates it. And it's organic and it's non-toxic. www.cushly.com. Also find them on Facebook and other social media under the same name, Cushly Organic Products. Look for it soon on the CCP store.
Indeed. You'll love it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it can be pumped out at 50, 75 cents a piece, they're almost giveaway items.
And tchotchkes are bought in the millions. And even though you're only getting a penny or two every time, that's millions of pennies, and that builds up fast.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Bush. I'm the president of the Industrial Hemp Research Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first fundraising activity that the IHRF has put on. We're at the Greenhouse in Denver, and we have a lot of interesting things going on today. We have several speakers on the general topic of industrial hemp on the cutting edge in Colorado. So we have people talking about some of the newest developments and most recent happenings in the industrial hemp industry. We have some demonstrations going on for hemp fiber, hemp building materials. We have some people who are in the industry selling consumer products. They're here today to sell some of their products and show them off. And we also have a very interesting silent auction that features a lot of hemp-related products as well as some other things. While they're at it, we also have some good refreshments, and I think we're just going to have a very good time networking with one another and learning more about the hemp industry.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, too. I feel lucky to even be here, My name is Thomas Ivory Jr., and I'm with the Denver Hemp Division, and I've been growing industrial hemp for the past 2 years. This is my third year, and I've been involved in the community since 2013, and it's great to see the people who are still here. It's really about community, So that's what the Denver Hemp Division is all about, is to connect the community, to educate, and to provide transparent knowledge, so we can all move forward in the right direction. I've made a couple of blunders and have messed up a couple of times through growing, genetics, like planting errors and stuff. And my goal is to make those mistakes so then other people don't have to. There's so many people out here with so much awesome information. So it's good to reach out and talk to them. But at the same time, you need to experience it for yourself to truly gain that understanding.
Cool, man. Did you want to promote anything specific or just kind of the organization in general?
Well, I did bring in a hemp beer in here. So here you go, sir. Do you drink?
I do.
Nice. Well, this is a home brew. My dad's been home brewing my whole life, and it finally reached a point where I was like, Dad, I'm tired of just washing the bottles. Teach me how you actually make the beer. So he started showing me the recipe, and what my life has basically become is like I do all these different things. I make kombucha, I make beer, beauty products, and what life has become now is just add hemp to that. I was already doing these things, and now I'm just adding hemp to it, and it's made my products even better.
What's the alcohol content?
That's about like 5%, maybe 5.3.
So decent beer.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a light beer. It's a pale ale. My intent is drinkability. So then, and also adding the aroma and the flavors to it. Yeah, you're not going to be disgusted. I want you to enjoy it. I want you to have like 6 or 12 of them if it needs to, you know? Some of those other home brews are so thick and heavy, you know, and too hoppy. Mine, I'm really kind of working on like the flavor of the hemp. I'm still like in a lot of the research and development, as a lot of us are, and I have a lot of different products out there, so I'm always refining my recipes, so I would love to hear your feedback.
Excellent. Give your website or social media or wherever you want somebody to check out what you're doing.
That would be denverhempdivision.com, and you can find me on Facebook or just go to my website. That's where I'll post up a lot of my events that I'll be doing, as well as promotions too.
Under the same name?
Yeah, Denver Hemp Division.
On Facebook also.
Yep.
Very cool.
Well, this is a cool thing that you're doing, so thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
I appreciate it. Thank
Cheers.
you, man. How long have you been listening to the show? Long enough to know that it's your show, and all you got to do to be on it is just reach out to us at cannabiscommunityproject.com or email brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com.
The storm is coming, Frank says. The storm that will swallow the children. And I will deliver them from the kingdom of pain. I will deliver the children back to their doorsteps. I'll send the monsters back to the underground. I'll send them back to a place where no one else can see them.
On a side note, for those of you who do not want to fully indulge in the outdoor activities of the 420 weekend and all the hoopla that's going on, and you're just the type of folk that like to stay home, maybe watch a movie or two, puff on your bud, hit your rig, relax. Well, let me recommend the movie Big Eyes. I'm on the Netflix plan, the one where they send you a movie, you watch it, send it back, then they send you another one on your Netflix queue. And the one that came in the mail yesterday was Big Eyes. I just wanted to recommend it to all of you in the community as something to watch while you're medicating or participating recreationally. It's a fun movie. It's a fascinating movie. It kept me enthralled, but it also made me think of something else. And watching this movie Big Eyes reminded me of myself as a kid being called Big Eyes. And then that reminded me of a conversation I had with Hetty Becca from Hetty Healthy Lifestyle. Becca and I were talking, I don't know, some months back, and during our conversation we had a little offshoot side topic that came up and actually cut it out of the show because it was irrelevant. It had nothing to do with what we were talking about. But I save everything I cut out because it triggers memories and other things that come up. And when I was watching this movie Big Eyes, it reminded me of my childhood in Big Eyes, which reminded me of a conversation I had just a couple months ago with Becca. And then I found the connection to the show. So I just want to give you a couple minutes right now just to listen to the fun little back and forth Becca and I had, and how much fun you could have while medicating, watching movies, and having fun conversation with people too. That's all it is. That's what it's all about here at the Cannabis Community Project.
Sound like a little kid.
Well, I don't know. I don't know much about speech therapy in that sense, but there might be a few theories on people's voices and how they change and how your tone of voice reflects certain things about you, and maybe things that in the past and everything else. I don't know. When I was young, people used to say I sounded like a young girl too when I was really young.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I went through these years of me trying to intentionally
speak low and clear.
When I was a kid, I remember people said, "Oh, what big eyes you have." So I went through this phase of walking around like half stone look, right? Be like, I'm not having big eyes.
I wonder, my son, my littlest one, Maxwell, he has the biggest eyes and just so cute, and everybody comments on that. But I wonder if he's going to
walk around like Jim Brewer, like a right? I can remember people saying, "Oh, what a baby face you have." So for years as a kid, I would like stand out in the cold and be like, "I want to rough my face up. I don't want a baby face. I want to be a man." But now I'm like, "Oh, well, maybe it's to my advantage."
It is. Like I say the same thing. I always was told I had a baby face, round, chubby cheeks, and now that I'm 41, I actually have some definition in my face, and I'm like, everybody says you don't even look anywhere near 41. People are like, I see you late 20s, early 30s. I'm like, that's 10 years.
Well, attitude has a lot to do with it, right?
That's
I mean,
true.
I'm sure you've met people who are quite young but appear to be kind of old.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is kind of attitude, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself. Also health.
Yeah.
I think your health has a lot to do with it. Or if you're kind of an unhealthy person, you can appear to be a little bit older looking. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that just since
You smoke cigarettes?
I used to, yeah.
You used to, but how long has it been since you have?
Oh, well, I was always a social smoker. And then I started going through my 40 change, and my husband always smoked. So I started smoking when I turned 40. So no, about a year ago. So I smoked with him because I took like a month off of work, evaluate what I was doing with my life. So I just smoked with him. When I was home alone, I'm like, well, I'll just smoke. And so I just started smoking.
I've given it up 3 times in my life.
Yeah, I'm doing an electronic. I'm doing the Julu from the packs. We have vapor cigarette.
It's just the e-cigarette type thing. Okay.
But it's 10 times better than that. For me, and I do need to get off of that. My husband asked me to stop doing that by the end of the year.
It's been almost 5 years since I've last smoked, and it was a few years before that, and then I gave it up, and now done. Now just the thought of it. I've tried to smoke cigarettes.
No, I couldn't even do a cigarette.
I can't get through more than like 2 drags.
Yeah.
It's
the smoke. I couldn't do it for the smoke, just sheer alone. And my husband quit smoking, of course. So I picked it up and he quit. So he's been quit a year now. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, that'll mess your skin up and everything. Smoking cigarettes will make you look old.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So that's my last little, I shouldn't say my last, but I do need to.
Well, there you go. Thank you to Hetty Becca for all your time and conversation and participating with us right here on CCP Radio.
Well, there you go.
Check.
I love cannabis.
Check.
Oh my God, I'm peeking!
I'm running with some of the endless flows of pro at bringing the ruckus. We kill them all, roll the fall, keeping the shit above it. I buzz like a bumble, drop jaws whenever I rumble. You said you write rhymes, but it sound like you got carpal tunnel or arthritis. I might just all night this priceless. So how you gonna change overnight, kid? My style all wild, Chappelle, you flawed now. Sure bound to sink in my waters until you all drown. Revealing you all now, fake casket put to sleep. The young vet, we hold the minds that you foresee. I pull from Long Beach, I call it treason. My to take your soul, kick your shit for no reason. You fools do better on being neutral, cause I go cuckoo. They see Rio and then I nuke you. Sex and bitch, they call me sutras. I make them useful. Shorty tried to lock me down, but that's the shit I'm used to. This shit is crucial. Go Facebook, I'm friends and mutual. I won't remove you. I'll just let the karma suit you. This what the brew do. 40 hours of in the sours. You new towers, often in towers. The world is ours.
Don't want it. Ill-minded, that's the Hans. Let me get him. You thought it was. Yo. Check the verbal attack. It's early in the rap to leave you in a surgical strap. They get your verse, this burst with a thirst for raps. All killer scrap with a thriller latch. You got a sick beat? My heartbeat sicker, call it an illa batch. They think the Riz is back, or the Jizz is back, or the Jig is back. Nah, sorry to disappoint. It's just this new killing tracks with no complications from this skill contemplating. Leave you contemplating from the combinations of your compilations. And I never fathom, just get at them with every last atom. Subtract an atom to the battle list that can't scrap with some animals. Stay with that antidote for those that always have MC fear. For you know the regular beast coast, but the coast gonna never be clear. He'll always kill this style because it don't get better by each year. Each other minute or missing life just becomes a leap year. Cause afterlife is known, we coming after life. Couldn't see him afterlife with half the mics, he killing afterlife. Could you pass the mic for the train of thoughts of assassinites? A shot at every verse with the ill mind, that is one you have to. What y'all really want? What y'all really want? What y'all really want? What y'all really want?
Whenever you're ready, just start out with hi, I am, and this is who I am.
All right.
And we'll go from there.
Okay.
Hi, I am Jeremy Krause. I am the new grow manager here at Dank. Been working here for about a year and 3/4, about 2 years now, and have just recently become the grow manager back around Christmas time. 2015, correct?
2015. So
my official titles kicked in on New Year's. Christmas Eve, they gave me the news, which was a nice little Christmas gift for me. And then once 2016 rolled around, anything that came down, cloned and propagated and then grown after that was all on me. 2016 going forward.
What were you doing before?
Truthfully, I was doing the exact same thing. But what had happened was we did not have a grow manager, and we needed one really bad. The guys were basically, we didn't have a leadership role. I kind of took over that spot. I had worked in corporate jobs in the past where I knew the tier of what a manager means to a team, and not having that was noticeable.
The leadership.
The leadership and the direction, the vision needs to be one guy's. Otherwise, you got 7 guys thinking different things. So,
right. And I assume everybody in a grow room is a previous grower, whether privately in their home or some other type of experience.
Yeah.
So they're all chefs, quote unquote, come into the grow room, probably with their unique styles of growing and their own opinions of growing. So somebody has to take charge, right? Somebody has to stand up and say, we're all growers, but we're going to choose this direction, and here's where we're going.
I'll tell you, one of the favorite quotes that I've heard about growing and growers is, for however many growers there are in the world is how many different ways you can grow. Right. And so everybody's got a different way. And what's unique here at Dank is we have a lot of guys that actually weren't growers. Some of them were trimmers, and some of them had never worked in the industry whatsoever. And some of them started out as our pre-weigh guys that were packaging our weed. Our cannabis was getting packaged, and then they moved up one way or another.
Pre-weigh? That's
pre-weigh.
What they're called?
We call it pre-weigh because it's just we weigh up the material previous of the sale.
It just sounds like saying like Pee-wee baseball or something like your JV. You're working your way up to the.
And it kind of is. There's no disrespect there. You got to start somewhere. And some guys were looking for a job, and they applied here, and they got the job and started at pre-weigh, and then they worked their way up through good work ethic.
So pre-weigh is the equivalent to the mailroom in a corporation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from that position.
Well, there's nothing wrong with working in the mailroom if that's where you're starting out. I mean, everybody starts somewhere. I used to work at Wells Fargo Bank in the processing center, which is literally taking boxes and boxes of checks.
And typing up.
Not even doing that, but just sorting them, right? I wish I had something physical to do, like type or something.
Right.
You're literally just going through checks, making sure numbers are there, and then running them through machines, which is very monotonous work.
Yeah, inevitably that's what it is here. You're taking big 1-pound bags of cannabis and then breaking them down into joints, grams, eighths, quarters.
Who's doing the grinding on that? There's got to be a
we got a
tunnel.
Yeah, we
I hope you have
I don't want to give away any secrets away here, but we use pretty much like a work. So
this is for a person. Obviously, it wouldn't work in a commercial standpoint if you're grinding through pounds and pounds of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're doing, an eighth at a time or something, definitely more comfortable and ergonomic than a small, twisty, round palm type thing. This is just a very ergonomic, and it has blades, so it's a slicer rather than pushing through little holes and
that's gorgeous.
Literally trying to grind.
That is nice.
Yeah, best grinder I've ever used in my life because it wasn't really built for grinding weeds. So I think people put some thought into grinding herbs, whereas
weed might just be marketed as I get you.
Well, I'm always I like paraphernalia. I'm a paraphernalia type person.
Yeah.
I like using lighters and the gadgets and the deals.
I got my vape pen, my vaporizer, my Silver Surfer, my bong, my chambered bong.
Yeah, and all the little things that come with it.
I grabbed my one hitter the most.
The one hitter is that's what you typically go with.
I use just the straight pipe glass one hitter, and I think I pack 2 to 3 hits at a time because I'm a little spoiled here where I can just tap out after the first couple of hits, get those green hits, and then tap out. So
well, you're working, so it's a little more difficult to just smoke throughout the day when you're actually working.
In the past, in other jobs, I had no problem smoking, but ever since I became a manager here, I realized that it's just a lot easier not to be, partaking. It's not a great role model.
You can say it. We don't have to be ashamed. Sometimes being sober is a better state to be under certain conditions. We don't always have to be stoned per se.
One thing I know for sure is there's a couple guys, a couple of the individuals that I know when I come back from break that are avoiding me as the manager, and I know why. I wasn't always a manager. So you come back from break and you see your manager and you turn around and go walk the other way. I have a feeling I know why that is. So.
Well, I'll have to introduce him to my Cushly spray. So
there you go.
That eliminates all
well,
the
sometimes their eyes and behavior gives it away before they're
What is the official policy when working in a regulated grow room as far as consumption goes?
Nothing. We have absolutely nothing on site, nothing on the premises. For what it's worth, I don't know what's going on.
From a policy standpoint?
It's illegal.
Okay.
Absolutely illegal. In fact, it's heavily enforced. I worked at a place that got shut down for people using on-premise.
On breaks and stuff outside.
In a break room. They had a vape pen.
Inside.
Or a dab rig. And the MED caught them on camera. We were doing about 35 pounds a week. They got shut down for a year and a half for it. So you can imagine millions and millions of dollars for some guy, who's smoking in the break room doing a dab. So here at Dank, we're what we call a culture of compliancy, and each individual here, whether it's a manager or our pre-weigh people, know that compliancy to the law is more important than you getting stoned. We make sure everybody knows that. We have a parking lot that's way off site, and like I said, I don't want to know what's going on out there, but I wasn't always a manager. So
as I like to tell people, we made marijuana legal. We didn't make stupidity legal.
Yeah, right.
So don't take both of those hand in hand.
Yeah.
Just because marijuana is legal doesn't mean stupidity is. But as a emerging leader in a grow room, in a dispensary, you must still deal with young kids, space cadets, stoners. Maybe people who are a little less employable in the world than the average person. But you still got to make business done. So is there a vetting process? Do you have to just take what you're dealt because the market needs people at this point?
Well, I'll tell you this. When it comes to vetting, I come from Iowa. I was a hard worker all my life. I've worked horrible, nasty jobs, and I've learned what a good worker is and what the meaning between a hard worker and a good worker, and trying to find the balance of the two, because sometimes your best worker is not always your hardest worker, and vice versa. We've got examples of both cases, and I'm always trying to find the happy medium between the two, of a hard worker and a good worker, because it's important to be both.
Well, what would define a good worker but not working hard?
You show up on time, you're polite, you're friendly, you do everything told. Maybe it's not the fastest pace, maybe it's not the most accurate way, but you're doing everything that's being told. You're showing up on time. You're fulfilling all the responsibilities that I had asked from somebody. If we have a chalkboard with all our jobs.
So the minimal to get by.
And not even minimal as much as it's, I guess that's more of a, you just know it when you see it. Or it would be somebody.
Pornography.
I didn't want to go. I didn't want to take that
Yes,
route.
I do recognize it when I see it.
Yes. So on the other flip side there, we have really hard workers that work their butts off and kick butt when they are showing up. Or, maybe they don't show up, no show, no call. They come in hungover. Those type of guys that you're like, oh, man, it's going to be one of his bad days. But then they kick butt. And you're like, okay, so consistency maybe would be a good word for a good worker.
Which is always the toss-up, right? Yeah. You're never going to have the perfect of everything. Right. So it's always either talent versus
and
grit,
talent falls in there too, and work ethic. So, and then when you talked about vetting, and in this industry, we get a pile of applications weekly. And if I wanted to, I could fire people weekly and hire people weekly. And that's just not what I want to do. What I'd like to do is build good, hard workers. And ideally, as a manager with the individuals that I have on our grow crew right now, improvements can be made to everybody, including myself. So what I try to do is see what things, the strengths that guys have, and use those strengths as examples for others to build on, and then weaknesses as well.
That's some great leadership. Let's back up and find out where this comes from. Are you university educated in business?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I went to
Was
school.
that a no?
No, well, you said when I heard university, no. I went to college, technical college in Madison, Wisconsin.
I was born in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
Nice. I lived on State Street for 6 years.
I lived there for a few years, and then we moved when I was a little kid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so State Street's like the party street in the college. So I lived on campus, and most of my friends all went to UW. So I went to school to be a firefighter. And
I could see that. You kind of got that Iowa look.
Yeah.
Iowa or Ohio?
Iowa.
Okay,
So I grew up in Iowa, went to, in Iowa.
High school football.
Okay. You got me. You dialed it in all. No. So, and I wanted to be a military guy, and I thought about all that stuff. And I have epilepsy, which leads me to where I'm at now. I had epilepsy, went to school to be a firefighter, hadn't had a seizure in a long time, ended up having a seizure in the fire academy itself. Was going through the hiring process, had a seizure.
For the first time?
No.
You knew about this since childhood.
Right, but I hadn't had a seizure in 5 years. We're talking 1997.
Why since 5 years? What happened? It just spontaneously stopped?
They had thought that when I was a kid that it was a juvenile thing, puberty and hormones, and they thought maybe it was just strictly I'd grow out of it.
Out of seizures?
Yeah, because they called it junior myclotic epilepsy, which is I wasn't having grand mal seizures that you see on TV and stuff, or what you think of a seizure. I had like a stutter, or I would roll my eyes, just little seizures. And what ended up happening was I had a grand mal seizure while driving and hit a car and had to get pulled out of my car by firefighters.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I had the firefighters, drag me out of the car. They saw my firefighting gear in the car, and they freaked out. They're like, I remember them saying, he's a firefighter, and they treated me like I was family at that point, and they were physically, and you could see it on their faces, like, get this, let's take care of this guy. And it was at that moment that I realized I couldn't be a firefighter. It wasn't because of rules. You can be a firefighter with epilepsy. The problem is the type of firefighter I wanted to be, I was not going to be able to do. I couldn't jump through buildings and drag kids out, because if I had a seizure, there'd be 2 firefighters coming in after me, plus the kid on my shoulder. It would have just been a bad deal. And it would have been really selfish for me to continue that dream. And I pretty much had to give it up. And I became a bartender, which is probably the story for a lot of people.
So you turned the alcohol.
Yeah. And the firefighting gig, I finished the degree and stuff just because I had been going to school for it. I, at that point, had to change directions and had no idea what I was going to do. Bounced around the country a little bit doing sales, mostly sales jobs, route jobs. I'm a delivery guy, and any sort of sales. I can sell ice to an Eskimo. So I got that ability in me to talk. I became a salesman, and once I was a salesman, they made me like a route guy where you're driving these big trucks. Well, the seizures came back. Had another seizure
on the job.
No, but what had happened is I went to the doctor. They said you can't be a driver anymore. I lost my job. In the doctor's office, they took my CDL away.
Do you get disability when that happens?
You don't. Social Security Department looks at that as you lost your job due to so you get unemployment until you find another position. But
due to a medical condition, isn't that disability?
Trust me, I looked all into it. I had a lawyer working with me. I worked with the Epilepsy Foundation because I thought it was really unfair for me to lose the job. I lost my job entirely. They fired me. They literally fired me at that point. Yeah.
But you weren't in an accident.
No.
Because they found out you had epilepsy?
Yep.
Can they do that?
Well, I disclosed it at that point. When they told me, why aren't you going to be able to work tomorrow? I said, I lost my CDL. They said, well, then that's the qualification for the job. And I was like, well, why don't you give me a job that doesn't need a CDL? Like a small van or a car or just an office job. And at that point, the insurance, because I had disclosed it, the insurance company that had covered my corporate job, and I'll leave their name out of it, but basically said we're not going to cover them, and they fired me. Wow. And at that point, I got a lawyer and everything because I thought this was I can't believe you can get fired for this in America. And apparently in Colorado, you can. In Colorado, you can get fired for anything. And the fact that I disclosed it myself is what got me in trouble. If I would have just said the doctor said I can't be a CDL driver anymore, that would have been different. But the fact that I said I have epilepsy, that's when I disclosed it to everybody. This leads me to where I'm at now, because as I left the doctor's office without a job, I called up a friend who grew weed, and I wanted to be a grower since the industry started. I'd been growing weed in my basement for a couple years. I was smoking weed for a long time. I just said to myself, here's my opportunity. Obamacare had kicked in. I could go buy insurance, because the biggest reason I didn't grow weed was I needed insurance, and I couldn't buy insurance because I had a pre-existing condition. And Obamacare lifted that and allowed me to go buy insurance and be a grower. And I worked in the marijuana industry for a year and a half, learning it on a commercial scale, because it's totally different than growing in your basement. And learning, like what we talked about, leadership and working with other guys and schedules. like having your rooms come down on certain days. I mean, it's a lot different because everything's all in a schedule, and then there's other guys' schedule, and then the dispensary's waiting on stuff. Everything's very regimented. Whereas when it's in your basement, you're like, yeah, this can come down today. This plant will come down in a week. Now it's like, well, this room needs to come down on Monday. This room comes down on Tuesday,
Right.
so.
Yeah, there's a power dynamic. When you're growing in your basement, you're kind of in control of your clients. When you're growing at a dispensary, your clients are kind of in control because, as we were alluding to earlier, there's places right down the road where they will go and very quickly go if you don't have what they want.
And the people up front, the dispensary people, have their wants and desires for me as their grow manager. Like, hey, we need these strains. We want this much of these strains. And I try to provide that. And that means I have to start planning things 14 weeks in advance. 6 weeks of veg, 8 weeks of flower. It's kind of hard to start planning. But once it gets into that perfect mechanics of like everything coming at the right time, flow starts to work. It's pretty cool. It's cool to be a part of that. And so that's how I got to here. I worked as a bouncer for a long time, and one of the guys I knew through bouncing was the owner here at Dank, and actually both owners. I told you that we had the grow that I used to work at got shut down due to uncompliancy, and I said I need a new job. I want to keep working in this industry. I've got a year under my belt now, and Gamut, the owner here, was like, let me get you a job. Came in here, started out as just like their trim manager, like working the harvest.
Yeah.
And once they saw that I had some talents in the grow, we had a grow manager get fired, and I just stepped into it. I said, I know these jobs. I know how to do this. We didn't have anybody else really in that position. They didn't want to hire anybody for that position. They kind of groomed me for it for about 6 months, and then I fell finally by January this year. It worked out to become the grow manager.
Two questions. How do you show you have growing skills if all you're doing is trimming?
Tough. This is tough.
And two, how do you get fired as a grow manager? What do you seriously have to F up to?
Well, let's see. How do I say this delicately? It was within the business. The grow manager and another manager who worked here.
Some internal conflict.
Yeah, weren't getting along, and some words were used that weren't supposed to be used, that shouldn't be used in a professional setting whatsoever. And this is something that I've been seeing in this grow industry, and now it's 2016, so we're starting to see the weak kind of fall off to the wayside here, and that's people who decide that they're a grower and that you are working in a business now. This is a company. They have people can sue you. Okay, when you work in your garage, you can call people whatever you want and do whatever you want and show up whenever you want. When you're working for a company, you're punching a clock, you're paying taxes, you can't say certain words in front of certain people, and you need to watch your mouth. You need to be recognizing the fact that there's customers that could be around the corner at any time.
You have to be professional. It's a business.
Professional, right. Yeah. And what I noticed is a few of the different managers that I've worked with at this point didn't have that ability to find what it means to be a company guy and a grower. And I have that because I worked for 12 years as a corporate guy while growing in my basement a couple of those years. So it was a good way for me to show, like, hey, man, I know how to be a businessman and a grower. Okay. This guy's not professional, whatever. He's not so professional. He gets fired. I see myself, I'm the trim manager. I'm getting plants that I'm seeing as I'm trimming that are, like, messed up one way or another. One's way heavy, another one's light.
So you're bringing up issues.
I'm like, what's going on here?
Which is showing that you have some knowledge in the area, and this is how you kind of see the fact that...
And it wasn't easy because I was just supposed to be the trim guy. People looked at me as like maybe just a friend of the owners that they brought in, and who's this guy telling me what to do? He's just been here for a month, but I'd be seeing things that needed to be addressed one way or another. And we didn't have a manager for me to turn to say, hey, and we have a general manager who's running our dispensary and our grow and is so busy all day long. The last thing he can worry about is, why are there yellow spots on these fan leaves? Whereas for me, I was like, we've got this going on, or, this is a big problem. And he doesn't see that because he can't. He's too busy.
The details.
That's one of the reasons they needed a grow manager. And throughout that process of grinding with the other growers as the trim manager, like, hey man, why aren't you guys doing that? Finally, they kind of saw that what needed to happen was some sort of title given to me to have people listen. At first, they just kind of made me the trim manager and a grower. Then I became a trim manager and the head grower. Then I became the trim manager and the grow manager. Nice. Now I'm the grow manager.
Yeah, you work into it step by step, and that way the transition isn't so abrupt and blunt for the environment, and you get the chance to step into it also.
Yeah. Want to clash with all the guys. They had been here a long time. They knew what they were doing, but they had a grow manager telling them what to do, and then he was gone. So it's hard to blame them. My changes, I had a lot of changes right away that people are like, who's this guy and what's he thinking? And some of my changes worked, some didn't. The ones that were working finally gave me some credibility to be like, okay, maybe we should start, and I think that's what happened. There was something, major changes that were made pretty quickly that was like, okay, he's got some validity to some of his tactics. Let's see what else he's got to offer.
So you're officially for some months into this position, this title here. Would you say you found your place in life in this job? That not to say you were wandering before, that all those sales jobs and route jobs were kind of aimless, lost life. But
I'll tell you this much, man. Working as a corporate guy, I mean, I knew that that's not what I wanted. Yeah. But I also didn't want to be a manager of a guy like me, who I loved sales, I loved people, I loved getting out there, and I didn't want to be the manager because you made less money, you worked harder, you had more stress, people don't like you got to write people up. There was a lot of things I didn't want to deal with. When it came to the grow side of things, I liked the idea of being a grow manager because I like having the ability to see things, diagnose them, and then implement ways of fixing problems or seeing solutions that maybe others wouldn't see. And managers in civilian life, civilian life didn't offer that challenge to me, where growing does, but that doesn't mean that's where I want to be the rest of my life. Ultimately, I think every grower in the country wants to become a consultant. These consultants make a lot of money walking around telling people what they're doing wrong, and then they walk out the door and they just made a bunch of money. If you look at me right now, I got dirty knees, my socks are wet, my hands have got calluses, I've been doing stuff all day long, watering, my neck itches, that's the type of stuff that I don't have any problem doing. I love hard work, but I would love to be able to just walk into a place and be like, yeah, do this, put it like this, do that, okay, see you later, and make $1,000,
All in time, though, right? That's a very realistic end goal, or just a future place to be in life. Get the experience, get the jobs, the credits, the mistakes, everything that you kind of need to teach somebody else.
Mistakes are major. I don't even listen to a grower if they tell me they know everything. If they tell me that they've never had a problem, I don't believe them. Like I told you, I used to be a bouncer, and I would tell other bouncers when they'd be like, what kind of martial art should I train in? Or what do I do? What workout should I do to get tougher, to be a better bouncer? And I would tell them to go get their ass kicked. You don't learn how to be tough until you get your butt kicked. And in this industry, you can't learn to be a good rower until you get your butt kicked by some disease, some bug, something will do it to you where you're like, I'm never letting that happen again.
That's right.
And that's how you learn.
Pain don't hurt.
Yeah. You got it. But if you know what I mean there is if you got to have some humility, you got to be ready to learn. And if somebody's telling me that they know everything, there's no chance of believing a word that they say. Nobody knows everything. Guys that have been growing for 35 years will tell you, I'm still learning. That's the guy that you want to listen to.
One of my favorite movies as a kid, Roadhouse.
Yeah, I know. Patrick Swayze, baby.
That movie inspired me to almost want to pursue a career in the high life of bouncing.
Oh, yeah.
But then I realized very quickly.
What was his name? Not Duncan.
Yeah.
Was it Duncan?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Dalton,
yes. Dalton.
Yeah, believe it or not, my uncle's best friend taught him martial arts for that movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's in the credits. His name's Randy Hall. You can look at the credits. He was the stunt coordinator for the movie Roadhouse. His name's Randy Hall. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, that movie's a classic.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could ever talk about any type of bouncing or anything without referencing or thinking of that movie somehow.
Well, my buddies were calling me Roadhouse for a long time after seeing my moves.
What do you practice? You study a martial art?
No. In fact, like I told you, I have the epilepsy, so I had to stop playing football in high school and college, and no martial arts. I love UFC stuff. I watch mixed martial arts. A lot of my friends practice that stuff, and I'm really into watching it. But if a simple headbutt, and I think this is why I got tough, was because I knew a punch to the face or a kick to the head could end my life. I mean, I can have a seizure and die. So I got tough that way, just knowing like I got to protect my head.
Or avoid fights.
But that's part of it. And guess what? Sales. How do you think sales fall in? I was a salesman and a bouncer, and I'm really good at both. And that's part of it, is learning how to not fight. Like, especially just talk your way out of it. It's usually the best way to win a fight. You know.
Well, you might enjoy Aikido.
Yeah.
You might enjoy that style of martial art.
That's more self-defense. And
very little contact.
Yeah.
It's mostly falling and throwing type stuff, but very little contact.
Yeah.
As far as kicking and punching
Yeah, I've
goes.
had people say judo as well.
Judo's a slightly, you were talking about aggression versus non-aggression.
Yeah.
If we're looking for non-aggressive stuff, judo may not, judo doesn't have punches and kicks, but I would not say it's a non-aggressive.
Yeah, you're right.
Judo is very aggressive.
Yeah.
Just like jiu-jitsu or any other derivative of those. But Aikido is a pretty specific art that's intended to be non-damaging to both yourself and the other person intentionally.
Yeah.
Meaning your attacker is intentionally not being harmed by you.
And that's a derivative of Taekwondo, is that right?
No, it's Aikido coming from Japan, Taekwondo from Korea.
Yeah.
Taekwondo is typically the real high kicks and spinning kicks and jumps and stuff. Aikido is a lot of circular movements and throws.
Okay.
So it's a lot of moving out of the way and then having people fall due to their own momentum type stuff.
Yeah.
Similar concepts of judo, but without joint locks and bends and holds and big
throws,
damaging type wrestling style type moves. Aikido, I'm hesitating to use the word passive, but it's probably one of the few and only arts that is intended to protect your attacker.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Not too much. Just enough.
Well, it's all based on throws, so it's based on somebody attacking
Get
you.
away from me.
You moving out of the way.
Yeah.
Person falling to the ground type stuff. But that might be interesting if you're
look into that, man.
something like that, and more peaceful arts in that style.
And I'm a hippie at heart, so that's good. Yeah.
But these are the kind of things that actually contribute to being a good leader.
Yeah.
Because a good leader is somebody that has that kind of well-rounded experience, curious about many things, has many interests, cares about other people's lives and interests, and genuinely tries to help people get to what they want to do or what they're trying to do.
That's what I try to groom them.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like this, but I try to groom them to be more like me. I feel like I was taught a certain way to work. I grew up on a farm and stuff, so it's my work ethic I'm pretty proud of. And I think anybody who knows me would say I've got a good work ethic, but we got anybody who works underneath me, I'd like him to be where I don't have to be so I'm not critiquing them as much because they're a little bit more like the way I want myself to work and want them to work, and I can't be too hard on somebody who works just like me,
Right.
And that's my job as manager, is to get people working the way I'd like them to without having to be such a micromanager, and telling people what to do all the time. I'd rather it just be, hey, I'm going to let you do your thing. I trust you because I've groomed you to be a better worker.
And this is why the most talented people are not necessarily the best managers, because you may have all the growing talents in the world, but if you can't communicate with other people and work in a group, your growing skills don't amount to much in an organization type setup. I think what you're explaining is pretty valuable stuff, because I do talk to a lot of people who do kind of have that mindset you're talking about as I'm the best in the world. Nobody can tell me anything. I've never made a mistake. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And a lot of it might be immaturity, but I think a lot of it is just lacking what you very clearly said, having your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Right? And all metaphorical senses. And literal.
Yeah.
But in a very metaphorical sense, have you ever had your ass kicked in business? Have you ever gone broke? You ever had to file bankruptcy? You ever put all your money on the line and lost it?
Yeah.
You ever gone out doing sales of your business and had all the doors slammed in your face until you couldn't afford
That's
to
the
eat?
other thing. Yeah, that was one of the jobs I had, was selling alarms.
The ADT?
ADT, knocking on doors in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, at like 7 o'clock at night as the sun is setting. I'm knocking on doors, asking people if I can come in to see their house and try to sell them a security alarm.
And you look like everybody who's in those commercials. You're like the middle class white dude from Ohio or Iowa who has the scruffy beard and a pulled over beanie cap halfway over his head, looking suspiciously around the house. You look like the commercials.
Let me in, right? I've had that job where you get the door slammed in your face, F you, dude. You're not coming in my house. Try to sell me an alarm.
Well, if you showed up looking more criminal-like, that might be a different story, right? So if you showed up looking like an actual thug and a criminal and not this kind of Hollywood casting kind of criminal that's breaking in your house late at night as the cat burglar,
But if you showed up looking like a drugged out thug, people might think about their security.
You're right. Or think twice about why am I letting this guy stand on my porch this long?
Well, that's what you need. What do I call him? A shill. A shill. You need somebody first to go up to the door and be like, "Hey, can I use your phone?" and just be drugged out and crazy looking, and then we'll instantly have the impression, "Oh, who the hell are these people in the neighborhood?" And then you could come up 10 minutes later and be like, "Hey, I'm representing security systems," right? And you'll have your perfect team action there.
Yeah, so that was one job that it got me to the point of learning rejection. I was a personal trainer for a minute. That's pretty tough too. You know, trying to sell yourself for $75 an hour is not easy. So learning to take rejection was similar to me starting out as a grower and getting my butt kicked by spending time and money on something and then everything going to crap and being like, what did I do wrong? What just happened? And if you don't have those experiences in your back pocket, it might happen to you when you're working for me, when there's going to be 15 or 20 pounds coming down, this week. And when I lose 4 plants in my basement, it's one thing, which it was a big deal then, but losing 72 plants or 108 plants and having 30 pounds on the line when the week of 420, this is the type of thing that I need good workers to know. Like, we need you to have these failures in your past, so I can depend on the fact that you're going to see a forecast of this could possibly happen. I'm not going to let it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, you are, without overstating it, the life and blood of a dispensary.
Yeah.
Without a grow, there is no dispensary.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's wholesaling. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess that's maybe not a correct statement said like that.
Yeah.
Without a grower somewhere, there is no business.
Let me tell you this. I think that the dispensaries that just use the wholesaling, or they depend mostly on wholesale, one thing I feel like is you don't get an identity with that dispensary. Our dispensary, we have about 50 strains that we have, but maybe 16 or 18 of them are our go-to strains people know us for and people come around for. And through the process of becoming the new manager, we noticed that our signature strains were starting to...
Branding.
Yeah. The strains that people really came in for started to have some struggles. And it was really important that we get our strains that people identify us with, get them back into being a stronger strain, or that strain, the potency and potential that it had in the past.
Right.
Where people were coming around calling, hey, do you guys have some of that Dragon in? You got that Durban in? And when you have more and more strains, you lose your identity, and all of a sudden you have 50 different things. It's like, well, that guy, they grow this, they grow all these different things. What I like knowing for us is we have like this core group of strains that are really strong, that we do really, really well, yielding and potency-wise, that are tasty, they smoke well, they taste good, and you get people coming back for. That was one of my first priorities, was getting those strains dialed back in, getting our identity back. Kind of bring this back to what we talked about earlier with the logo. We got a new logo, and it was kind of good timing because I became the new manager. We had new strains, it's always good to offer new strains, but we also got our old go-tos back. And it wasn't new, it was newer than it had been. It was better than it had been, and things turned around, and we started to see, even on my side, taking the stuff home and being like, wow, this tastes a lot better than it did 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, or a year ago. So
just because you remodel your house doesn't mean your house is falling apart.
Right.
It just means you're giving it a facelift.
Yep, exactly.
It's just a refresher. This is probably your background of the sales bleeding into that mentality of really thinking about the brand and the identity and how the product itself is really being used as a sales tool. You're using the product itself to sell dank. You're not selling a name. You're selling a product here. So that's probably some of that background coming in.
Well, in my mindset, my goal is to get people in here and get them excited about new things. So I need my old stuff that was really good to get people through the door. And whether they want to buy T-shirts, hats, paraphernalia, or they want to try out a new strain that looks good on the shelf that they'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Well, it took me getting those go-to strains dialed in to get somebody through the door and be like, oh, we'll take some of this other stuff too because we know this is good. I've had this before. This is good. Well, we'll try some of this. I kind of think about it like a 7-Eleven where they don't make any money on the gas, but you buy a candy bar, you buy a slushie. And
you have to go inside to pay, or you used to, right?
Yeah,
you used to have to go inside to pay.
You're doing these other things that get the people through the door, though. And for me, my 3 things I'm always working on is potency, how much, so yield, and then taste. So those are the 3 things that I focus on, and that's what you're going to start seeing changes with the products here, and we've already started seeing it.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because as a grower, you probably have a lot of opinions. I have a lot of questions based on this idea of what is a strain, right? Yeah. As far as naming goes, not what is it in the technical aspect, but as far as names go.
Yeah.
Because the branding and the identity is very important, and people do look for certain names because they're associating those names with certain reactions they've gotten from what they've tried. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, if I have a OG Kush here at Dank and I go 5 miles south and buy an OG Kush, the reality is they're not going to be the same thing.
No.
Which is very different than buying a Coors Light at the 7-Eleven on this corner, driving 5 miles and buying a Coors Light. It's going to be Coors Light.
Yeah.
So the reality is when it comes to names, there's very little to stand on as far as what does it really mean.
I'm glad you brought it up, because that's what I'm talking about, is when we have certain strains that people search out for, and they like it here, and they don't like it down the street, and they love Durban Poison, but our Durban Poison's better than the guy down the street, or our it tests higher, or the smoke quality is better, or we flush better, and we use less pesticides. Any of those type of things, quality and snobby weed grower or smokers, they pick up on these things. What color the ash is at the end of your bowl? Is it white? Is it black? Is it not burning well? When you exhale it, does it burn in your throat? These are different things where if I bought a bottle of Jim Beam at one liquor store and it made me want to throw up, and I go to another one, I'd go, you know what I mean? Like, that's my idea, is to get these strains that people are searching out for, that we knew were popular.
Right.
That for a reason. All these dispensaries around here are growing those same strains, and they come to us for something, for some reason. And, I try not to think about it as price. A lot of it might be price, but I'd like to think about it as quality. Because for me, when I'm buying marijuana, whether it's here or up in the mountains at a different dispensary when I can't pop in here, is I'm looking for that Durban Poison or that Master Kush that gets me all those certain things that I had listed and makes me happy at the end of it, at the process of everything combined, the taste, the smoke quality, all that stuff. At the end of the day, am I going to buy it again? Will I go back there? We talked earlier about yelping bad. Not everybody's going to yelp. They'll just choose not to come back.
Right.
And if I can get somebody to come back here who hadn't been here for a long time because the quality had fallen off one way or another, it's my job to get these people back through the door.
Yeah.
And that's why, like right now we're trying to get people to come back, especially people who live in the neighborhood here or who have came into Dank and maybe tried it out a couple of years ago. They liked it, never came back. I'm offering an invitation to anybody to come back in. We have coupons right now in Culture and Dope. We carry both those magazines here in the house. And if you come down here to Dank, go and ask for one of those magazines. You'll be able to get one of those coupons and use it right away. Let them know that you heard the podcast, and we'll get you a better discount, better deal, and hopefully you like the product enough that you'll come back and give us a second chance.
Let's create a special one right now on the spot for only people listening to this.
Yeah.
That's created right now just between me and you.
Okay.
So how about this? Somebody that would only know about this, who's listened to you and I speaking right now, would have to come in and say a phrase or something.
Yeah.
And the only people that would know that is because I'm not going to put it on Facebook. I'm not going to write it anywhere. It's only going to be right now in this 10-second conversation. Let's do something that you would know about, and then I guess you can inform whoever else needs to be, and just make a special little CCP radio promotion that can just cut through everything and let people know that the promotion is coming from this conversation.
We could just say this, friends and family of the podcast. That would probably be one way to show that you heard it here and that you're interested in giving us a second chance, and or your first time ever, but maybe you got excited after hearing about this through the podcast. You come in, you say you're friends and family of the podcast. I'll let all the bud tenders know and the managers know that there's a new special in the house, and we can knock 20% off right away.
Wow. So you have to say a friend of the podcast, and you don't have to say it's the Cannabis Community Project podcast, but if they ask which one, I guess go ahead and tell them the one at the end of the hall.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know I'm down here. I mean, it's a facility. A lot of people. I'm not here throughout the week.
You know, you could mention that we heard the new head grower on your on a podcast, and he said to come down for a 20% discount.
Yeah,
right.
and just tell him because I'm a friend of the show.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
And we'll find out a way to cut through. But only you're going to get it if you're listening. I'm not going to write it anywhere. It's not going to be on a blog. It's not going to be on a Facebook. I'm not going to Twitter.
I haven't gotten that approved, but we're going to make sure it happens. Yeah, we'll make sure it happens.
We'll just come up with a whole bunch of stuff.
I was told to
there.
promote, and that's how we're going to promote. That's how we're going to promote. So come on down and check us out.
You know, just jumping back real quick. So what we need to do is somehow create a system where the name itself identifies the quality. For example, Mad Dog 2020. Just the name. Do I have to go, well, are we talking about the store in Colorado Springs or the store up in Park Hill? Because that Mad Dog, right? The name itself says it all.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is somehow create a system where the name is associated with the level or quality or placement of what it is.
Yeah, it's tough because, and I'm glad this is the case, and this comes from genetics too, and you might have a stronger genetic and your phenotypes are different with every strain. So if my sour diesel or Durban poison, I use Durban poison because it's one of the original strains, and there's a wide array of where that genetic has evolved. And some people have really strong genetics, and that plant is resilient and yields a ton. It's super tasty. It's just gorgeous. You know, it's one of those, it's like flowers or tomatoes or anything else. The genetic means a lot. And what you're not, just like you were talking about alcohol, but that's a branding thing. You know, that comes to one big batch of Coors Light is Coors Light. But a tomato is a tomato at one grocery store, and the tomato right next to it in that same grocery store might not be as good, but it might have came from a different grower, where that was
country of the region.
Yeah.
But it's like here in Colorado, we have Olathe corn. Right? The name, the brand, signifies the corn of
the genetic
quality. Right? If we said, hey, how's the corn in Colorado versus the corn in New York, well, then it would be a very, it's debatable.
Yeah.
But if we said, how's the Olathe corn, well, then we're talking about a very specific grow from a specific region with a specific gene plant, I guess.
But if you take that Olathe corn kernel and plant it in Iowa, or you plant it in Texas, it's not going to be the same tasting corn. Even though it comes from that same genetic, it was grown differently with different environmental factors.
Different sun, different water, different soil.
Everything. Air quality, everything goes, humidity, all that stuff. And when it comes to growing marijuana, is you need to find genetics that are strong because they'll fight diseases and they're more resilient for bugs or potency and yields. All these, there's certain reasons we do certain things. But just because I have a really great genetic doesn't mean it's going to be great unless I've maximized the potential of that genetic. And that means the different environment, what type of water I'm giving it, what type of nutrients. Are we flushing it properly? Are we giving the plant everything that it can to maximize its potential through its genetics? You know, if you take your genetics and your parents are two bodybuilders and then you eat potato chips your whole life, you're not going to be a bodybuilder. But if you eat eggs and chicken breasts and work out, great body. You see what I mean? Like
I do. I'm actually doing this experiment right now with my
eating
two
potato
kids.
chips all day? No,
I'm doing the alcohol versus weed. When my daughter was born, I was living in Mexico, and I was pretty much on an alcohol-only diet for a number of years. And people really don't believe me when I say this, but as just an individual, it's not easy getting individual smoke in Mexico.
Yeah,
it's not easy. They're not a smoking culture.
No,
they're a drinking culture.
Yeah,
with a little bit of cocaine.
Yeah,
but not necessarily a smoking culture.
Yeah.
So if you're just looking for a dime bag, it's not easy.
Right.
You got to deal with shady people and get shitty weed, and it's just not a system. So as a result, I was pretty much on a drinking-only diet for a number of years. My daughter was born. My son, who was just born 10 months ago here in the U.S., was born under almost the complete opposite circumstances.
Healthier.
100% cannabis consumption, 0% alcohol
Wow.
for a number of years. So now as they grow up, I'm going to see how they are drawn to alcohol, weed, how their personalities develop. I'm going to do my own unscientific experiment. I guess I've already done it in a sense.
You've already deposited that.
I've already done it. But it's the same thing, we're going to see how genetics affects things.
And you're right. Maximizing the potential of genetic is always what I'm trying to do. So with what you are doing, you were feeding yourself poison, and I'm guessing you mean your fish obviously are still swimming. Things were working. So we'll see your daughter obviously has 10 fingers, 10 toes, and
Right.
you know it wasn't that obvious. So
Right.
with marijuana, what you see is stunted growth. You would see more bugs, more powdery mildew. You would have more problems.
Yeah, and that's just my son.
No, but you know that's what I'm looking for is to maximize what you know, and we don't have the best genetics on every single strain we have, and that's because you don't know what you're getting a lot of the times. You can only hope for. If I go to a grow that I know and I trust, and I say, "Hey, we are going to do a trade here of we'll give you 10 of our clones for 10 of your clones," you know, that's when you say to yourself, "Okay, I'm going to take a gamble by bringing this in. By bringing this in, bringing in a stranger's what he had been doing." And the worst thing that can happen is that could change your whole garden. That one clone. That you bring,
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Or that might be the best strain ever. And the next thing you know, you are in magazines across the country, and we're talking about it on your podcast about how did you get this 36%, 2 pounds of plant, like, you know, whatever it is. But that can happen. So it's a gamble. It's part of a gamble that takes place, and maximizing the best, your genetics is what you always want to do.
Well, from a technical standpoint, since you mentioned trading clones, some people are interested in this, and I don't know how technical it is, but you clone, you don't mother plant, right?
We do mother.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we clone off of our mothers. What I'm talking about is bringing in new strains. So all of our mothers are as is. You know, we've got basically like 100 mothers.
So every batch you're taking from a mother, or you're starting from new clippings?
We call them cuttings or clippings, and that turns into a clone. We put it into it's root little root ball, with a little bit of hormone on
I'm
there.
asking because of the genetics, because I've heard that if you mother plant, the genetics will break down over time.
They recede.
Whereas, you know, if you say, hey, I have a 10-year-old mother plant, that may not necessarily signify a better quality. It may actually say the opposite, that because it's been 10 years of constantly taking from it, that it's been breaking down genetically. And I'm not a grower, as you might be understanding very quickly. But as you're cloning, you're kind of starting fresh without that breakdown happening in the process.
Well, I think it's a matter of terminology here, because we're cloning our mother plants. We're taking a clipping off of mother plant, and we make that a clone. That becomes the same genetic as it was.
Which is different than just pruning away from your mother plant and then letting that replenish, or?
Well, I mean, obviously there's people who use seeds. Okay, and you can grow from a seed, which is the best genetic. That's your genetic at its best.
To start from seed.
To start, right. And you aren't going to find that much in a commercial grow.
It's long, too difficult.
Scary. Yeah, you don't want seeds around. You know, it gets nerve-wracking. A lot longer process as well.
Okay.
So I'll be the first one to admit that the genetics are always receding, but that's also why you keep in touch with other growers to say, hey, I'm ready to get some new genetics in here. And when you do that, you take on whatever they have at that point, and you'll start receding from there. But it takes a long time. We try to every year update all our stuff. You know, our moms we keep around for a few months. It's actually about 6 months or so, and then we try to update our moms. And all the mom is that mother, you know, that plant that becomes a new mom came from the mom that it's getting replaced from.
Okay.
So it's the terminology cloning and mother. I mean, we're still doing the same. That's still one thing.
Right.
Mothers are cloned. You know, we're cutting clippings from a mother and becoming a clone.
For some reason, I thought it was you were clipping from the plants themselves that were growing before they were actually chopped and clipped, reuse those rather than going back to the mother.
Yep. Some people do that, and that saves a lot of space, and you can do that. We've done that. We don't seem to have a problem with it, but what we do like knowing is, let's say you have a block, we call it a block, but let's say your veg garden gets poisoned for whatever reason. Your lights went out, I don't know, whatever. I don't even want to know what could happen. Things can happen, though.
Then last week with the snowstorm, you went out
with 32 hours. 32 hours. But let's say you had a bad employee, threw some bleach, and killed all your veg, okay? So you have a mother garden that backs up your genetics. Now, some people decide not to use the mother garden, and they only clip from the plant while in veg. So let's say for some reason you forgot to take a clipping of your Master Kush. And now your Master Kush is all in flower. You can't take a clipping from that. You just lost your Master Kush.
So it's a backup.
It's kind of a backup, right?
Okay.
And for a commercial grow, it's nice because our moms are huge plants with a ton of tops on it. Our propagation guy can come through, take 200 clones, 50 Space Queen, 50 Sour Diesel, and maybe 15. We can pick and choose from quality.
Right.
This one rooted better than this one. We throw this one away. We keep this one. Well, if you're taking tops from just your veg, it's really difficult to say, hey, I'm going to take 100 of these. You don't want to take, that's a lot of your tops of your garden. You're kind of forced to use stuff that you might not have normally used. It might not be like the rooting might have not been well. Once they start taking, maybe they start getting spots or rust on it. And you're like, oh, shoot, I got this, this whole strain is going to be crap. Well, what you end up having is the ability with us, we got these moms that are backed up.
Yeah.
And I can go over and say, hey, let's take 50 tops from our moms, and we'll pick 15 of them when they're 15 of the best ones. So here it is again, going back to quality and how I can keep up with that standard of keeping our customers happy is by saying, hey, we're giving you the best that we got.
Yeah.
I had 100 different tops I could have given you. We took you the 15 best ones, and you just throw away the other ones. It's kind of crazy, but
not literally throw them away.
Literally throw them away.
You don't use them other purpose?
No, we have to throw them away. Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's difficult, man.
Hate
It's
inefficiency.
Tough. Well, the inefficiency there, you'll find in commercial growing, there's a whole lot of inefficiency, and it's based on trying to get the best product. But I look at that as that's not that inefficient to me. Yeah. We might have used 5 gallons of water on those little tiny clones at 200 clones, and we used 50 of them, so 150 got thrown away. Right. How many of those? How much water did I use? How many nutrients did I use? But what I did get was the 50 best ones out of. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the process that we go through to get the best.
Well, when I say other use, I mean like, can they be mulched for paper? Can they be made into twigs for art? I mean, just used rather than literally thrown out. I mean, not they have to be made into edibles. Not that kind of use. Just
I mean, we're talking a plant that's maybe 4 inches tall at this point.
Yeah.
With maybe an inch of roots.
Yeah,
that
it's not
are
even
in a
really
little cube.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
Do you compost your own?
Yeah,
Do you mulch?
we have that's part of the thing that we do here. We're pretty environmentally conscious, so we don't do it ourselves, but we have a guy come in and mulch everything, and we weigh everything. Everything's tracked and kept up, and he has to track his side of it on the recycling side of it.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Which I don't think people really realize it, even if you're a home grower, which I'm sure when you were a home grower thinking about, hey, I could be a grower at a dispensary, give me that freaking job.
There wasn't such a thing as a dispensary. It was called the dude down the street.
You're right.
But we used to go searching dumpsters in alleys to throw stuff away. We'd get our cars filled up with all the trim and all this potting and everything, and then go find some dumpster like 3 miles away and throw it in there.
Doing it little by little, like Andy Dufresne with the dirt out of his pants from the Shawshank.
Right,
little by little, trying to get rid of your evidence.
You have to, yeah.
This is why I laugh at people when they tell me they're going to grow their own and sell it to dispensaries. I'm like, what dispensary are you talking to? Who the hell is going to buy your home grow?
You can in Washington. That's the way they're letting it. How we used to be able to do is you used to be able to grow it here, walk into a dispensary with 2 pounds in your backpack and sell it to them.
Because it had to be at that point. But you're talking about a legal standpoint.
Yeah, you can't.
Forget the law.
Yeah.
I'm saying, would you ever accept just some stranger randomly walking in saying, hey, you want to buy my pound of weed?
This, kind of bring it back to us. This is what my job I try to do is I do not want us buying wholesale, because if some guy comes in here and buys the wholesale product sitting on the shelf and gets sick from it, it makes us look bad.
Oh, yeah.
Or this can happen too, is if they love it and it was really good and we can't offer it, So there's that side of it too, but more importantly is the safety side.
It's a lose-lose situation.
People could get sick. We don't know where it's coming from. Like I talked about our culture of compliancy that we have. I know what's going on. I'm in charge of everything from the plant coming down or the plant growing to the plant getting trimmed to the plant getting pre-weighed is all happening here in the house. So everything's, we know what's happening. And the stuff that I'm smoking on the weekends or at night coming off my shelf, I know where it came from, me, us.
Yeah.
my guys, our newt line, our pesticide-free line.
I just can't believe how many people still have this mentality, though. That they have an acre of land, they're going to grow weed and sell it to dispensaries.
That's
I
Johnny
don't know where they're coming
right.
from. I don't know what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously don't understand how the industry works.
Right, and they missed their window. Is what they did.
Yeah,
they
by
missed
a few years.
Yeah, they missed their window. Go find Washington, Portland. Go to another city that's cool like Denver that's about to legalize, because that's what you are looking for. If you want to get your acre going.
Where they need the supply.
Yeah, because nowadays here, there's so many people that are offering wholesale, because you got all these guys that got into it with huge 100,000 square foot warehouses. And, they don't have anywhere to sell the weed now, and they're trying to get rid of it, so dispensaries are picking it up through wholesale. So good luck trying to compete with that guy.
Exactly.
And that guy's a millionaire who doesn't care, doesn't know how to grow weed. He's just a businessman.
Right.
I mean, good luck trying to compete with that guy. And you're out in your acre farm,
right?
Competing with this guy who's got automated system with barometers and cell phone activity. He can start watering with his cell phone. I mean, this is what's happening out there.
Yeah. I see the products every day. More and more people are inventing their own self-contained grow boxes, put in your home.
Oh yeah, I saw one last night, man. It looked like a coffin that stands up, and it turns into darkness. So there's like a light, and it turns, and then it opens back up, and a mister comes down. I mean, I was like, you got to be kidding me! Why didn't I think of this? Well, somebody did.
That's what that's what I'm waiting for. I think that's what everybody's waiting for, is just the whole microwave version of weed, right?
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, would you agree that if technology were to advance to the point where everybody could have a self-producing cannabis, something in home, that's what people would do?
I do.
Okay.
I think that I have my mom, I have relatives that have all said, I just like the way it looks, or it smells, or it's a pretty plant. I have a neighbor who neither one of them, they don't smoke weed. They haven't for years, but they have a huge garden. They want me to get them some clones because they want to just grow it, and they said they'd give it to me. But it's just a big problem. It's just a big plant that they had never used before. That they've never got to grow, and they've done onions and potatoes and squash and all these things. They just say it's a beautiful plant. Well, I can't imagine it not getting to the point where somebody who says, I'm going to grow tomatoes, I'm going to grow my cannabis, and if it's in this little self-contained unit, all the better, And I'll tell you where I think the evolution's going is I think there'll become a time where there's like a service industry where, I used to service people their water, 5-gallon jugs of water. I'd show up to their house, deliver water, give them new water machines, and you had your little, water containers with the spigots on it and stuff. Okay, so I think what it's going to go to is people will have self-contained marijuana growing in their house and then have somebody come and service it. Change out the reservoirs, give it pesticides, whatever it needs. Like a doctor, is just coming to do the weekly checkup on the plant. And
like having a gardener, it'll just be an affordable service, like a lawn maintenance or a lawnmower.
And a monthly fee of $200, and then you get the weed when it's done, or something like that. And you're doing it in your backyard so all your friends can come over and look at it, and whatever.
So with that in mind, that we both kind of agree the industry is going to a point where the commodity is going to get cheaper. People are going to have more access to it. It's going to become more available. Mm-hmm. How is a business like a dispensary going to stay in the long run competing against what inevitably is going to happen, which are two things. The price is going to get very, very cheap. And people are just going to have more direct access where they may not need the storefront per se, whether it's delivery services, home plant, machines, push-button type stuff, growers in home or service people come by, whatever it is, it's going to get cheaper and easier.
I don't know about that, only because what I look at is the alcohol market. You have people making craft beers in their house now, in their basements, in their garage. Maybe that's a hobby type thing, but you still go to the store to pick up beer for the weekend. And I think that'll happen in a very, very slow process. Right. It's not cheap to grow marijuana. It just isn't. Overhead for lighting and all that stuff is pretty expensive, where people, I don't know, are going to make that initial investment to say, hey, I'm going to smoke that much weed through the year. Because nowadays there's no black market really to get rid of it. You're not going to sell it to your friend because he can go down with his coupon that he just get off your podcast and go get 20% off and pay $20 for an eighth of weed. I don't see where there's a market for it as much as maybe this is weed I grew, and you have maybe a half pound or a pound a year or something that you have sitting around, but it's not much variety. You're still going to stop in and get a pre-roll or dabs or whatever. So I think that it'll be a slow evolution. I don't think we'll lose that much in the market, but the interest, I think it will be growing. Like the interest to get into craft brewing and having people brew their own beer, it's grown, but I promise you every guy who's making beer in their garage is drinking some sort of alcohol throughout the week. Somewhere along the line they're buying booze, or they made whiskey, or they're making beer, they're going to go buy whiskey, So I don't see the market so much dwindling because other people get interested in growing weed.
So Dank is secure for the near future.
Yeah. With the new grow manager here, we should be doing real good.
That was a lot of information. I think we really learned a lot about Dank and the grow from a different standpoint. Yeah. Obviously, we could have gotten into many details about how you grow and the fine points of growing, but this isn't a growing show.
Yeah, that gets pretty technical and boring.
People can listen to learn about how to grow. But maybe there's a business in the future for Dank of holding growing classes.
Yeah.
Or something
one thing I'd like to promote, though, when it comes to our product itself, something that I'm very proud of is all the hard work and effort that goes into keeping a lower, we try to use everything as organic as possible. We try to use everything as clean. We flush everything as much as possible. Try to make the product as healthy as it can be, the highest quality that it can be. And without getting too technical, that's a lot of work. It's hard to do that. It's really easy to have things be done for you, push a button, and the product doesn't come out as good, but you just made yourself a couple $1,000s in product. Okay.
Right.
I try to be really mindful of the quality of it, and I want to be proud of it, and I want to be, brag about it. So, let me take this opportunity to brag about our hard work and say, give us a shot to see how we compare to someone else that you might buy a bigger grow. We use kind of the marijuana boutique ideology of it's not this huge warehouse. We've got a smaller, we do everything hand watered. That means we're lifting all these plants every day to make sure to see how much water they need. Instead of giving it a ton of water when it doesn't need it, we're lifting it to see, okay, it just needs this much. We do certain tests to find out if it needs nutrient or not. So there's different things that we can do on our end to make it's a lot harder work, but it makes a product that much better. I give a lot of props to our guys that do that. All our growers have a lot harder job than some of these other growers do, So I'd like to give that, at least just say that without getting too technical, that it does, a lot of hard work goes into a better product.
Well, let me take the opportunity to encourage everybody to come down and try out this hard work.
I love it.
In person at 3835 Elm Street, Denver. Come try out the new Grow Manager's hard work.
Yes.
Come check out the new logo.
Yep.
Come see me at the studio, end of the hall, and make sure to tell them that you're a friend of the show.
Yep. Get your
discount. And if they're confused to what show, just point to the end of the hall and say, the podcast down that way. Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time, and I've taken a lot of it, so I hope we haven't killed any plants by keeping you here too long.
Nope, I got that team. Our team is doing a great job, and I could easily come down here and talk longer if you wanted me to, but I'm sure you don't.
Well, please come back, because I think people want to know more and more about behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right? Behind the scenes of a dispensary.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to teach people how to grow.
And literally behind the dispensary. Our grow is behind our dispensary. So it's literally behind the scenes. Yeah.
Very cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
That's all I got for you this week, Cannapreneurs. Thank you for listening in, and thank you to everybody that's been supporting this community over the years. Keep following us after the show on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Mass Roots. We're out there. You can find us just about anywhere, even YouTube. So make sure to come back next week and join us for another show where we'll be discussing more topics, interviewing more guests, and this is getting bigger because of you. We'll see you next week.